Hi, my name is Chris and this is Battle Nonsense. Bungie faced a big challenge when they started to work on Destiny back in 2010. What they wanted was a game that blurs the line between single and multiplayer while not using traditional matchmaking and lobbies. Players should be able to meet others simply by hitting Play Destiny. The developers themselves described their solution to this problem as uniquely complicated, which is not an understatement when you have a look at the presentation from the Game Developers Conference in 2015. I will put a link to that document in the description down below. So in today's video I will tell you a bit more about how this network model works and how it affects your online experience in Destiny 2. Now, while I always do my best to keep the netcode analysis as simple as possible, you will still need to have some basic knowledge about computer networking, tick rates, update rates, network models, super bullets, lag compensation, packet loss, and a few other things like how I do my network delay tests. So to keep the netcode analysis videos as short as possible, I've put all this information into a separate Netcode 101 video, which you should have watched at least once before you continue with this video here. The card overlay in the top right corner of this video, as well as the link in the description down below, will both take you directly to that video. So in Destiny 2, Bungie uses the same network model that they built for the first game. The only difference is that the physics host is no longer running on the player's console or PC, but on a dedicated server, which prevents the annoying host migration issue that Destiny 1 is suffering from. So simply put, Destiny 2 uses a unique form of the peer-to-peer network model where all clients directly talk to each other, while some functions have been moved to servers provided by Bungie. A fundamental flaw of any peer-to-peer network model is that it reveals your IP address to every player you run into. So when we have a look at the connections that Destiny 2 established in one of my 4v4 Crucible matches, then we see 3 Bungie servers located in the United States of America, 1 Limelight server located in the UK, 1 Blizzard server located in the UK, and 7 players located in France, Germany, and Turkey. Now, by revealing the IP addresses of these players, the game makes it very easy to find out the country and in some cases even the town they live in. With that information I can then block or throttle the traffic between my client and theirs, or I could launch a denial of service attack to affect their online experience, which especially streamers have to deal with on a regular basis. So privacy is a concern in games which use the peer-to-peer network model, but that's not all. You might have heard the saying, never trust the client, which is something that comes up a lot when you talk to a developer who is working on multiplayer games. Clients can simply be wrong as a result of latency, packets arriving out of order, or many other network-related issues. And then there's of course the issue of hacks, which becomes increasingly difficult to deal with when you put sensitive tasks like the hit registration on the client. Bungie faces this problem in Destiny 2 as they use the peer-to-peer network model, which puts many sensitive tasks on the client. A measure they took to shield their game from hacks on PC is preventing any application from injecting code into the game. The downside of this measure is that it also blocks any and all applications that provide an in-game overlay, like MSI Afterburner, RTSS or Discord. It also blocks apps used for streaming or gameplay capturing like DxTory or OBS when you try to use the game capture mode. But despite these efforts, which harm legitimate players, hacks still exist for Destiny 2. Now let's dive a bit deeper into the communication that happens between the clients and these servers. The rates at which the game clients send and receive data have a very strong impact on the delay that you experience while playing online. So when we look at the network traffic from that 4v4 Crucible match that I mentioned earlier, then the Limelight and Blizzard servers show next to no activity, as these are most likely used for the user accounts, which is why we will focus on the 3 Bungie servers. The first one shows next to no network activity, while the second one has quite steady update rates of 10 Hz. Based on the information from this dev blog, it seems like this server is the activity host, which is responsible for ammo spawn times and the scoring system. The third one has update rates of about 5 Hz with occasional spikes. I don't know what this server is used for exactly, but it's possible that this is the physics host. So my PC sends about 40 updates per second to each of those other 7 players. But sadly I can't say the same about them, as one of the players from France has an average update rate of just 15 Hz, which even drops down to 7 Hz a few times throughout the match. This means that he might be suffering from packet loss, network congestion, or maybe his PC can barely handle the game. But this player is the exception, at least in this match, as most of the other players maintain an update rate of around 30 Hz. However, there's just one player from Turkey who is able to maintain my send rate of 40 Hz, which is not very encouraging when you consider that lower update rates result in more delay, especially in a peer-to-peer game. So the quality of a player's internet connection affects the rate at which he sends data. But besides, in example, packet loss resulting in lower update rates, the frame rate is also directly affecting how many updates per second a game client sends. Destiny 2 sends updates at 40 Hz when its frame rate exceeds 40 FPS. But when the frame rate drops to 30 FPS, then the update rate goes down to 30 Hz as well. This means that on PC the maximum update rate of a client is capped at 40 Hz, while on console it's just 30 Hz, as Destiny 2 is locked at 30 FPS on all consoles, including the PS4 Pro. Now let's have a look at the hit registration. When you shoot a player in Overwatch, which uses dedicated game servers, then it does not matter if that player has a ping of 22 milliseconds or 522 milliseconds. The only thing that matters is your ping to the game server, which determines the time that it takes your shot to register. In peer-to-peer games you should get lower delays than in games which use dedicated game servers, as you talk directly to the client that you are shooting at. There is no game server between you two. But these lower delays that peer-to-peer can offer fully depend on the game's ability to only match players who live nearby. But this theoretical lower delay goes out of the window as soon as the game adds players from different countries, like in that 4v4 Crucible match that I've been talking about here, or even from different continents. What makes matters worse is that since you have a different ping to each and every of these players, the hit registration delay depends on how these game clients reach a consensus on what happened, or what the outcome of an action is, like if my shot was a hit or a miss. In Destiny 2 this causes that you get different hit registration delays on all 4 players of the enemy team, and so you won't get a consistent online experience. Now, what is the lowest network delay that we can get in Destiny 2? Bungie announced that they will add a private match option to Destiny 2 next year. Until then, I'm sadly not able to provide you with results from the damage delay test, as I could not get my 2 test players into different teams. During the 2 hours where I tried to get my players into different teams, they only got into the same match 3 times, where they always ended up in the same team. So my damage delay tests have to wait until Bungie gives us the option to create private matches in 2018. Now, since both my test players use the same internet service provider, I get a ping of 1 millisecond between them, which means that there is almost no packet transition delay between these 2 clients. Under these conditions, I measured an average gunfire delay of 36 milliseconds and an average movement delay of 37.25 milliseconds. At a glance, these delays beat every single game on that list. But what you must keep in mind here is that no other game was tested at a ping of 1 millisecond. If my test players would always have a ping of 1 millisecond, then Overwatch would have a gunfire delay of 23 milliseconds. That's 13 milliseconds less than Destiny 2. And Lawbreakers would have a movement delay of 32 milliseconds. That's 5.25 milliseconds less than Destiny 2. Then there's the consistency issue. In Destiny 2 you will experience different delays on a per player basis, as you could see in the video that I showed you earlier. While in games like CSGO, Overwatch or Battlefield, your hit registration will always have the same delay as long as your connection to the server is stable. Now, how much bandwidth does Destiny 2 need? In the dedicated server network model, the game client only talks to the dedicated game server. As a result, this network model does not reveal your IP address to any other player, and it allows higher update rates as the bandwidth requirements are quite low for the client, since it only talks to the server. In games which use the listen server or client-hosted network model, one of the players is also the server, which not only puts a lot of stress on its residential internet connection, but also makes high update rates impossible. Besides that network performance downside, the host can also see the IP addresses of every other player, and since he is player and server at the same time, he can use lag switching very effectively. Now, while peer-to-peer is the best network model for 1v1 fighting or sports games, it's the worst case scenario for games which have more than 2 players. Everyone can see your IP address and the game client needs a lot of bandwidth, since you send your data to every single player and they send data back to you. In numbers, my game client sent 152.3 megabytes and received 128.3 megabytes while playing 4v4 Crucible matches for 1 hour. The download of about 130 megabytes won't be an issue for most players. However, the upload of about 150 megabytes is a problem for a considerable number of players, as residential internet connections usually have far less upstream than downstream bandwidth, and many players are still stuck with an upload bandwidth of just 1 megabit per second or even less. So you might think now, why should I care? I have 100 megabits internet. Well, in a game like Overwatch, which uses dedicated game servers, your hit registration is indeed not affected by another player's bad internet connection. But Destiny 2 uses the peer-to-peer network model, where you directly communicate with each and every other player. And so the quality of their internet connection and the distance between you two have a direct impact on how responsive the hit registration feels, as you can see in this video. So just to avoid the misunderstanding here. Yes, players with bad connections also affect your online experience in games which use dedicated game servers, as you might then receive their shots behind cover. But what I'm talking about here is the hit registration delay when you fire at them. And that is not affected by their connection in games like Overwatch, which use dedicated game servers, as there the server makes the call if a shot was a hit or a miss. He does not ask the client how he feels about it. So with Destiny 1, Bungie set out to create a game where you can dive into the story missions alone or with your friends and meet new people along the way. But while Bungie clearly accomplished its goal with their uniquely complicated network design, you have to wonder if it was such a good idea to use the same architecture in the Crucible, as peer-to-peer has some very clear downsides which I showed in this video. Back in 2010, when Bungie started to work on Destiny, the server hosting situation was quite different to what we have today, with scalable cloud services like AWS, Azure and Google Cloud. So I wonder if Bungie would also use a peer-to-peer network model if they had to create Destiny today, or if they would go for a dedicated server network model which builds upon scalable cloud services, which does not have the downsides of peer-to-peer but costs more money. It will be very interesting to find out which network model EA chooses for Anthem, as that game seems to be quite a bit like Destiny. Bottom line is that the PC provides the ultimate Destiny 2 experience, as not only the gameplay is smoother at high frame rates, but also the network delay is shorter since the game sends and receives updates at up to 40 Hz instead of 30 Hz. On the flip side, the game shouts out your IP address to everyone you encounter, overlays from third-party tools don't work, the functionality of gameplay capture tools is in some cases limited, the responsiveness of the hit registration will vary on a player-to-player basis, and some players will run into issues with the required upstream bandwidth, which is both the result of using peer-to-peer instead of dedicated game servers. Now, if you enjoyed this netcode analysis of Destiny 2, then it would be great if you could support me on Patreon. Without the awesome support that I get from my patrons, I simply could not continue to bring you these netcode analysis videos. So if you like my work, then you can find the link to my Patreon in the description down below, where you can also do a one-time donation now. If you want to stay up to date on what I'm currently working on, then you can follow me on Twitter or Facebook, the links are in the description of this video. And if you don't want to miss the next one, then you might want to subscribe to my channel and click on the little bell icon below this video to receive a notification when I upload the next one. So if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris, and this was Battle Nonsense.